Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Biff the Banana channel. It's been a while. Today, I figured, because I'm a bit bored, we'll take a look at Gen 9 OU, a metagame overview if you like. Apologies if the quality is a bit funky. I'm recording this from my sofa on my flat with a TV, so it's a little all over the place. I have to hold the entire microphone arm. Without further delay, let's get started, and I hope you find this helpful. So Chapter 1, the top 5 Pokemon. It's not the 5 pictured, so we're going to go over who they are, how to use them, how to beat them. Just a note, the actual top 5 change all the time. For example, Zamazenta, Gouging Fire, Roaring Moon, etc. could always have been in the top 5. This is more of an overview of the mainstays, sadly not including Wo-Chien or Clorf. So let's get into it. Number 5, Dragapult. Best in class speed tier of 142. Let's outpace basically the entire meta. This includes everything apart from Deoxys speed and select Scarf Mons. If you're running Scarf Hatterene for some reason, for example, you obviously will still be slower than Dragapult. This means it often doesn't have to run max speed to threaten things. You just pick what you want to outspeed and then go for it. Although you can run max speed to make sure you at least speed tie other Pults, which is what I tend to do. Excellent attacking stats and coverage. Let it run at physical or special sets. Everything from Thunder Wave Hex to Draco Meteor or D-Dance, but we'll get to that. Specs, there we are. Specs, Let It Break, Willow, T-Wave, Hex sets are common, as are Light Screen Reflect Pivot sets. Deceptive Bulk, thanks to its good typing, it can switch it on a lot. Yes, that Dragon Ghost typing gives him a lot of resistances and 2 immunities to normal fighting, letting him switch in on Spins, E-Speeds, Mark Punches, Vacuum Waves, Water, Grass, Fire moves, Electric moves that aren't Thunder Wave, you don't really want to get paralyzed, and so on. He's quite good at getting in. Every set has its weakness, it's the key to beating it. Blissey and Clod, for example, beat Specs sets. Heatran beats your Willow sets. Clef may well beat your T-Wave sets, or an Electric type. So on and so forth. It's good. A good catch-all to beat it is Booster Speed Valiant, which will outrun any non-Dragon Dance or boosted Dragapult and knock it out with a Fairy move. Don't run Scarf on Pult to beat other Scarf-type Pokemon. That is ridiculous, and its speed doesn't really need enhancing. You want to enhance its special attack with Specs, or boost its physical attack with Dragon Dance, which happens to boost its speed. There's no point running Scarf Pult. Number 4, Great Tusk. Holds the entire tier together with its amazing variety of sets and can basically be splashed onto any team. If you are missing something, chances are Great Tusk can do it. Rapid Spin. Woohoo! Very good move, obviously. It's got brilliant coverage and it's very threatening. It's more on the physical side, obviously. Unlikely to be rocks, but it can run them if you need the roll compression. Absolutely annihilates Raging Bolt because it basically only runs Electric Stab. You can sweep with Bulk Up and Rapid Spin or with Booster Speed sets. The biggest issue is, as Pink Cross said, with Great Tusk, you can't have it all. It only has 4 moves and it is especially weaker generally. It will lose to lots of special attackers unless they're stupid enough to click Psyshock instead, in which case you may well be fine. Most commonly, in my case, I run Heavy Duty Boots with Spin, Ice Spinner, Headlong Rush and Knockoff. Max Attack lets you beat defensive Gliscors with Ice Spinner and stand up to Landorus T with Ice Spinner again. Max Speed and Jolly lets you curb stomp Goldengos who may try and catch your up spins, blocking them with their Ghost typing. There are many good Tusk sets though. It's worth experimenting to see how your team can most benefit, as I said at the top. Very splashable, so find a gap in your team. Chances are Great Tusk can plug it. It does though get mobbed by Ogerpon, that's your out. Ogerpon Wellspring. Number 3, King Gambit. It's like a bunch of black glasses, we all know this is good, so we'll get out of the way with. Absolutely stupid ability, lets it obliterate people in the late game. Supreme Overlord is stupid. It's not sweeping as much as it used to in early Gen 9, and not even as much as it used to when Pink Cross made his video on the top 5 OU Pokemon, although I don't think those have changed too much. However, it is great to check Goldengo and non-Will-O-Wisp Dragapult sets. It's really great at applying pressure with its presence. It's actually not bad defensive typing, apart from the quad weakness. It gets eaten alive by said weaknesses with Zamazenta and Valiant if they're present in the metagame. Low Kick has come into fashion a bit more since Pinkacross made this video. I recommend Terra Fire to avoid burns. The aforementioned Will-O-Wisp Dragapult sets being a good example of those, and common Zamazenta coverage such as Ironhead or whatnot for your usual Terra Fairy. Ironhead, Sucker Punch and Kowtow are all solid pickups. Stopping Fairies, Dragapult, Oldengo, and the occasional Petrarch and Sinister. In fact, I think Petrarch has actually become OU since I initially scripted this all out. Swords Dance is mandatory on this mon to punish his checks. It's also the only way you're going to reverse sweep successfully, so you just do need it. I recommend always running a bit of speed on King Gambit to at least beat other King Gambits, but I also, I think most run a good amount to outpace at least Clefairy. I'd recommend running actually a fair amount. I won't get into the EV spreads on teams even later on today, specifically, but that's why I recommend. Don't put Stealth Rocks on it. I know it's got them. Shouldn't need saying. Don't put them on it. Number 2, Kyurem. Honestly, there's a case to be made for this being number 1, but I'm following Pinkacross's admittedly old, but still, I believe, extremely accurate ratings. Number 2, Kyurem. I hate Kyurem. I fucking hate it. I drafted it once in the draft league and never used it because I forgot I had it, but I hate it in OU so much. It's got a ridiculous amount of sweeping potential, always any set, it can run loads of stuff, Dragon Dance, Choice Band, Choice Specs, Loaded Dice, Heavy Duty Boots, all solid. You're probably not going to see them Choice Banded though, they're more likely to be Dice. It has perfect coverage with Ice and Ground and access to Freeze Dry. Basically, there are no switch-ins at all. It can Terra to beat its checks, or go Terra Fairy to basically never die ever. Kyurem is shockingly bulky, especially because it gets defense boosted in the snow. It pairs really well with the number 1 Pokemon. It's sort of checked by Zamazenta, but that's not a very happy check, especially if the Kyurem is running specs or a boosting item like Life Orb or a boosting set. It's really nearly unwallable, and it can boost the speed with Scale Shot. It's by far the strongest offensive presence in the tier. It's slow and it's ice type, so really the best way to crush it is to take advantage of those drawbacks as much as you can. Don't run Scarf, because then you're locking into a move for speed, and on Kyurem that's silly when you should just run D-Dance or Scale Shot Dice instead. Locking yourself into a move with Scarf is a surefire way to lose your Kyurem. So don't do it, but if you want to help me out, run it. Number 1, Galar Slowking. Interesting that this is at the top, I suppose, if you look at it. It's literally the king of OU in my opinion. And this is backed by Pinkacross. Incredible special wall, beats Iron Valiant, special Dragapult, can answer Kyurem, etc. In fact, one thing I forgot to mention, for Kyurem, actually a reasonable check to this is Sizzle. You don't see Terra Fire much on Kyurem. You can often see Terra Fairy, which does leave it open to Bullet Punch, as does its base set. But anyway, back to Galar. Its low speed and chilly reception make it literally an unbeatable pivot. Reason being, it removes the need to read and predict, enabling your team spectacularly. Future Sight pressures stall, so stuff like Clodsire, Toxapex don't love Future Sight. It enables safe switch-ins for your team by pressuring would-be checks. For example, if you want to get in a Fairy like Iron Valiant, but you're worried about the opponent pressuring you with a defensive poison type like their own Galar Slowking, Future Sight makes them think twice about it. Invalidates Glamora teams with its poison typing, soaking up the toxic spikes, for example, and in fact pressuring it with its own psychic moves. It's threatened, however, the big problem is it's threatened by a lot of top tiers. See the last 4 ones, Kyurem, King Gambit, Great Tusk, and Dragapult as great examples of answers to Slowking. Despite that, it's still extremely high usage, and it's got just a general one good set, I think. Boots, Chilly Reception, Future Sight, and Sludge Wave, plus coverage with your choice is the best set. You can run AV to enhance its special bulk. This is great in the Kyurem matchup, but it's not good in general because you're losing Chilly Reception. Although again, in the Kyurem matchup, you don't mind, but I think the reason it's number 1 is Chilly Reception. So I think, based on that, I would not run the AV sets. You can run Psychic instead of coverage to beat Zamazenta, but in that event, you want to be aware of Crunch. You're not very physically bulky. You're physically fine, but you're not super bulky or more likely to be specially invested, so I wouldn't, recommend doing that. Colbur Berry is also good for Zamazenta specifically, for example, and Black Sludge and Trick is also quite fun, tricking it onto other Pokemon and getting their item. It's best on balanced teams, but it can work on all sorts. Surprisingly good special attack to take advantage of that future sight pressure for hyper offense teams, for example, to switch in your sweeper of choice. But hyper offense doesn't generally want to switch, so it's not amazing. Best on balance, in my opinion. Chapter 1.5 are honourable mentions. These aren't top 5, but they're still important. They're worth noting and keeping in mind when building. That is, obviously, number 1 of those is Goldengo. Good as Gold is a crazy ability, and this Pokemon is extremely versatile. I personally love running AV Goldengo to catch special attackers off guard, although I have been running it less and less these days with the rise of Terra Ground Specs Kyurem. The Earth powers are too strong, but Goldengo basically enables the amount of hazards that you see in this tier single-handedly by blocking Defog, Mortal Spin and Rapid Spin, all forms of removal. You just have to be wary of those Great Tusks, and in fact it's checked so much by ground types these days that I've put it as an honourable mention instead of a top 5. Gliscor, really close to being in the top 5 in my opinion, but unfortunately it's a little too linear for me. It's very hard to stop getting Rocks Up or the Toxic Orb. It's a great knockoff switch in once you are poisoned, and Earthquake, Facade, Swords Dance sets are really dangerous. Terra Water Crabhammer is very niche but very fun. You don't really want to run that native with Oakmont Wellspring though, who we'll get to. I think it's just a very strong Pokemon. Dual Wing Beat is very good with Stab and Terra Flying as well. Or if you get knocked off, you can run Terra Acrobatics if you're feeling special. I guess not a bad Pokemon either. Iron Valiant, my personal favourite Pokemon to use this generation. Extremely versatile Pokemon, very similar case to Dragapult, where you don't quite know what you're going to get with Valiant. They typically tend to lean more special due to its access to Moonblast over Play Rough. Its best physical fairy move is Spirit Break, but it still could be either. It could be Setup, it has access to Encore, priority with Vacuum Wave. It's a very scary Pokemon with a lot of good coverage. The only thing it can't do, unfortunately, is Pivot, which puts it outside of the top 5 in my opinion. Next we have Landorus T. Still pretty good, lost its access to Defog, but is generally a very, very versatile pickup for your team. If you need something to set rocks and be a bit more of a physical wall, and you don't fancy Great Tusk for whatever reason, Landorus could be the option for you. It doesn't have removal, but it does have U-turn. I've seen a lot of Lando T. I've run a lot of Lando T. In fact, I've run it more than Tusk, but it's not as central as Tusk, so it has to go in the honorable mentions instead. Bringing us next to Zamazenta, a Pokemon who I've mentioned a lot and who I will continue to mention because it's the bane of my existence in this tier. If you do not consider Zamazenta when building your team, you will be punished for it despite its exclusion from the top 5. It's probably as close as you can get to the top 5 without being there itself. This thing is disgusting. The defense boost and access to body press is vile, but burning it is a surefire way to cripple its effectiveness against your team. And last of all, Dragonite. Dragonite is very prevalent here. Terra Normal E-Speed is still ridiculous, even this late on into the game for this meta. The best option you have is to burn it, really, or paralyze it to stop its chances of moving for E-Speed, but it's very difficult to do with Terra Normal. You can run a Ghost, such as Goldengo, to try and counter it, but he usually runs Earthquake to counter steals. You could run Dragapult to counter it, but then you're running the risk of being hit with a Dragonclaw or a Draco Meteor. Another honourable mention that's not in the pictures that I wanted to mention real quickly is Ogerpon Wellspring. Its access to spikes, pivoting moves, and strong Grass Water Stab make it very, very difficult to deal with, as well as its water absorbability, making it ridiculously difficult to answer on stall. For example, if you have Alomomola, who is another prevalent Pokemon in OU, but we won't be touching today, you can punish Alomomola very hard with its flip turns. You can just bring in Wellspring and start setting with spikes, or set up Swords Dance. You've got Knockoff, you've got Play Rough. It's a very, very, very strong Pokemon. Really, it probably could take the 5th spot, but Dragapult's is a little bit better in my opinion. Chapter 2, Team Building. Team building in Gen 9 is a lot of fun, and done right, it can be very rewarding. Some people don't like to team build, and that's fine. You can use sample teams. Pokame on his website, for example, has a lot of sample teams. I imagine you can get a lot of help in the Pingacross and Jibberthy Cool Discords, as well as the actual Smogon forums for team building. Yeah, it's fine if you don't. If you like some teams, that's great, but I think it's very rewarding to team build. So we'll go over some of the teams I've built and had success with, and I'll break them down for you. So, Team 1 is the Hydrapple Balance team. This is the main team I've been running for the longest time on ladder. I built this team because I wanted to run Hydrapple. It's my favourite Gen 9 design. Iron Valiant's my favourite to use, so he's here too, we'll get into him. So I wanted to build around him. It's amazing, I found a niche into Ogerpon. So that's what he's built around. Ogerpon does have play rough to counter you somewhat as a dragon, but I find this isn't actually run that commonly on Ogerpon, and more frequently with just access to Grass and Water Stab and U-turn, but you're physically bulky. There's not a lot he can do to answer you, and you pressure it quite hard with Giga Drain. It's big neutral damage, as well as your neutral Dracos. So that's what I built this team around. Started out with Assault Vest Happle with Draco and Fickle Beam. I've since switched to AV Happle, but with Body Press and relying on Regenerator for recovery instead of using a move slot for Recover or Synthesis. Although I don't know why he'd run Synthesis if he even gets it, he'd run Recover. Hydrapple is notably bad against other dragons, like Kyurem especially, and Dragapult, so that's where Valiant and King Gambit come in to help those matchups, particularly the Kyurem one. You can punish it with Valiant's Speed and Fairy Stab typing, or King Gambit's priority with Sucker Punch, or its Iron Head if you want to catch him on a double or something. A bit harder to punish him with King Gambit. I originally had Skeledirge to help me beat Sweepers with its unaware unaware ability, and Stall with the snowballing potential of Torch Song, but this ended up leaving me very weak to Ground and Great Tusk, which is why I brought Moltres in, being flying and all, and reliably burning more often with Flame Body, and running Will-O-Wisp. Landorus gives me 2 critical immunities, both those being electric and ground. Fun fact, you want to have immunities to both those types if you want to run in OU, with the presence of Raging Bolt being diminished but not 0. Electric immunity is still very important, as well as the prevalence of Volt Switch, and immunity to ground is obviously extremely important with Great Tusk being on like half the teams in the tier. He also gives you Intimidate, which helps you against other physical attackers, such as checking Ogerpon, which he's not wanting to do otherwise, but can do with Intimidate and Rocky Helmet, for example. It also helps you against Zamazenta, Gambit, and so on and so on. He also gets Pivoting in the same package, so he's a no-brainer for this team, having U-turn, which is why he's here over Great Tusk. He's a bit unique on my team that he has Flying Terror Blast, which doesn't come up often, but when it does is often game-winning. This is usually against Great Tusks that are getting out of control, for example. It comes up a lot less since I added Moltres to the team, who has access to Hurricane, but before that was my only Flying Stab, but it's very important, I think, to find some sort of Flying Stab on your team. Lastly, Ogerpon is on the team. This is the first team I brought Ogerpon on, and I've loved using it since. It gives a solid all-purpose lead into a lot of general matchups, whereas, as you can see, maybe Landorus, but not sure. He can pivot, set spikes, or threaten big damage with Cudgel and Hornleech, pressuring Pokemon out. It's worth noting, of course, that this team Landorus is the Stealth Rock setter. I think you need a Stealth Rock setter, and you arguably would really like a Spike setter on a lot of teams as well. So that's the main team. Hydrapple, Moltres, Iron Valiant, King Gambit, Ogerpon Wellspring, and Landorus Therian. I really enjoy using this team. I still use this team, but there's a big weakness in its lack of removal. Which brings us to Team 2, Scizor Offense. You could argue this is a balanced team. I'd argue it's offense. There's not many defensive pieces in this team, but the idea with this team was to take advantage of Scizor's strong matchup into Kyurem and its access to removal with Defog, which is a preciously limited resource in OU. With that said, I run an AV Scizor in this case. No, I don't. That would be stupid because I have Defog. I'm pretty sure I'm Boots, but that's fine. A lot of regulars from the first team are back. They make up pretty much the same spine, so we won't cover them. Iron Valiant is the only one we'll touch on, who's running a Calm Mindset this time to fill the special attacking gap left by the absence of Hydrapple. In a similar vein, Dragonite is our physical setup sweeper this time around, running a fairly standard set, as I described earlier. We're running E-Speed, DD, Dragon Claw, and Earthquake, or you could substitute Dragon Claw for Ice Spinner, and I have a few times. It's really strong, so there's no need to do anything fancy with that set. It's a pretty standard team, just leveraging Scizor's great Bug Steel typing to bully Kyurem and enable Dragonite to sweep once that threat has been taken care of. Landorus and Moltres help us check stuff like King Gambit that may want to reverse sweep and we can pressure them. And we use the Landorus and Ogerpon to set hazards which further enable Dragonite and Iron Valiant sweeps by removing focus stashes, or multi-scale in the case of opposing Dragonites. Which brings us to Team 3, Primarina Balance. This is a bit of a different looking slide, but I thought it was kind of cool, the sort of the sports style lineup of the 6 Pokemon. We'll start with, this is the most recent team, it's the freshest in my mind. We'll start with, I noticed Primarina, having used it in doubles a lot as I grow into VGC, looks really strong into the OU tier. It can beat Moltres, Zamazenta, Great Tusk, Dragonite, Special Pulp, you can read, and many more than that. It can even stand up to Kyurem's Freeze Dries with its being naturally specially bulky. I actually really have loved so far using Primarina in this tier, which is what brought it in. I generally run Liquid Voice as its ability, and then run Hyper Voice, along with Moonblast, Encore, and a 4th coverage move of your choice. I think it gets Flip Turn, but I'm not 100%. I would have to double check, but I don't think it does. Anyway, it's very fun. What's a good natural partner? Dragapult. You finally see Dragapult on a team, and oh, that's this. Whoops! There goes my sound thing, the XLR thingy, but it still looks to be working, so we'll carry on. We finally see Dragapult on the team. In this case, I'm running a special Dragapult with Thunder Wave and Hex to cripple and punish fast enemies. Think, for example, a Zamazenta, who is the main Pokemon I was trying to beat, because I've been struggling against it a lot with that Scissor team, for example, for some reason. I'm not very good at Zamazenta. Yeah, so Pult does that. He also has Dracometer just to break walls. The Dragonites, for example, with the multi-scale schematic, punch them really hard. Yeah, looks good. So I decided to have Iron Moth next, due to its general immediate power. It's running a 4-attack booster speed set, outrun and knock out various problematic Pokemon, notably the Steel types that may give Primarina issues, and resist the attacks on Dragapult. Think your King Gambits that could be a problem, or formerly Archaludon many years ago. Not many years ago, but you know what I mean. Fiery Dance and Sludge Wave for your fairies, such as your Iron Valiants and maybe Specs instead, which your boost speed allows you to outrun. Your Clefairies, or they are generally specially bulkier. Your Enamoruses, and so on. You can run Discharge, which I run for frequent paralysis procs, and then you can run Dazzling Gleam with Discharge. He gets a lot of good coverage. You could even run Para Meteor Beam, but in this case, I decided booster speed, better to leverage that 140 base special attack. Rillaboom, therefore, made a natural partner. I've loved using Rillaboom in doubles lately, notably because of the power of grassy terrain, halving earthquakes, which Moth appreciates a lot. He also gives me priority with Grassy Glide and a much needed second pivot with U-turn, and access to knockoff, which is very handy. Great Tusk came next. It was sort of a natural partner for removal, plus access to Headlong Rush, meaning that I have a ground-type attack that's not affected by the terrain. Rapid Spin lets it clear up rocks, which our non-boots wearing Moth, because we're booster, very much enjoys. I run Heavy Slam on this Great Tusk. It gives us an out against fairies, which is useful, because as you can see, this team is lacking a Steel type, speaking of which, our last Pokemon is Tornadus, who I picked for access to regen, and its high speed tier allow me to have a Pokemon that can repeatedly pivot around and help enable the team. It's very much built to help beat Great Tusk and Zamazenta with Bleak Wind and access to Psychic, and it is able to punish reckless switch-ins with access to knockoff. Yeah, it's the team. I quite like this team. I'm still getting to grips with it, but I find they synergize arguably the best so far of the 3 teams we've shown. But those other 3 teams we've shown, and I've had success with all of them. So that brings us to Chapter 3, the final chapter in today's fairly brief, hopefully brief video, my thoughts on OU. I think Gen 9 OU is an extremely fun metagame with a lot of potential and a very unique identity. There's a lot of new Pokemon running about, a lot of Gen 9 Pokemon stamping their mark onto the game, and I think we'll see a lot of them going forward in future Git metas. In fact, we are with Goldengo and Annihilate, for example, in the ZA-OU metagame. I think Terra is a great mechanic. I think it encourages strategic thinking and resource management as is once per game resource, and it can help you with your team building due to being able to patch holes with Terra rather than needing to dedicate entire Pokemon slots to counters, which can help your team be that extra bit more versatile, give it the push it needs. Speaking of, versatile team building is encouraged due to known and centralized Pokemon, which we've been over. You can build around them. A lot of the tier focuses on, a lot of new Pokemon focus on building around current ones. I tried in my team building examples we've just been through to demonstrate this line of thinking and how it's not just about bringing lesser known Pokemon, but it's about bringing those Pokemon with a purpose and finding that purpose for them and how to build around them to enable them for that, and how to build win conditions around what they enable in cases, say, like Primarina or like Sizzle. Which brings me on to there is lots of scope for less known Pokemon to thrive, such as Primarina being able to deal with Zamazenta and Great Tusk, and that being an in for Primarina to the meta. In my case, Pecharunt dealing with stuff very well, bringing it up to OU lately. Hydrapple and my quest to take it to #1 on the ladder with its amazing matchup against Ogerpon. Sizzle's brilliant match into Kyurem and its ability to remove hazards, giving it great roll compression. The scope, I know Sizzle's not really less known Pokemon, but it is in this ladder, for example. There is scope for a lot of Pokemon to do well here. And I think it's a really fun metagame, and it's a really, really good place to start if you want to get into competitive Pokemon and team building specifically, since there's so many good examples, and it's probably the most popular OU metagame I've seen in a while, at least during like current generation time. VGC's blowing up, and this seems to be doing, has done quite a lot as well. Yeah, I really enjoyed Gen 9 OU. I hope this guide was a little bit helpful. If there's anything you want me to go more in depth on, let me know in the comments, and I can do follow-up videos or follow-up on comments. I'm trying to make a few more videos again. Unfortunately, I happen to be between jobs right now, but that does give me time to make some content. Hopefully I can work on a better setup so you don't get funky quality with my hand holding the mic. But yes, hopefully this was helpful and enjoyable and a good time was had by all. PowerPoint is my editor now. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.